Howdy folks, Dreadshells here, and welcome back to World of Tanks. I hope all of you guys are doing awesome. Today I'm going to be doing a video on the LTG, the Light Tank Gavilov, the new Russian Tier 7 Scout Tank that replaced the LTTB at Tier 7 when the LTTB got moved to Tier 8. And I am going to be giving you my initial thoughts on this tank and what I think are the strengths and the weaknesses of this tank, and just my experience so far in playing it. I've only played it about maybe not even quite 24 games yet in this tank, so maybe around 20 or so. I can't remember how many I played in it. But I played enough games to kind of get a feel for it, so I thought I'd give you guys some feedback, and maybe this will help you guys make this tank work when you're playing it. First of all, the Light Tank Gavilov. It is extremely ugly. There's no gutting around it. This is one ugly tank, very homely. In fact, I made a comment about that on my Facebook page, and somebody said that it kind of looks like Colonel Klink from Hogan's Heroes. So I don't know. What do you guys think? You think it looks like Colonel Klink? It's got a little bit of the monocle thing going on there with a road wheel there on the turret. I don't know. Maybe a little bit anyway. But anyway, so as far as setup for this tank, so going for crew, I think the crew loadout is pretty basic when it comes to crew skills. I left my crew skills just the same as they were on the LTB. If you don't have this high of a crew skill, I would definitely go for camo first on this tank, as you should with any scout tank. And that is the strength of this tank, as I'll be talking about in a little bit, is the camo rating of this tank. But also you should be going for concealment and then view range, and then repairs. You should be going for recon and situational awareness. So camo, crew skill, view range. I would try and prioritize snapshot and smooth ride, as this tank does suffer quite a bit from poor gun handling, as I'll also be talking about for crew skills. And then you can, if you get into the fourth and the fifth crew skills, then you can start throwing in repairs. So, but that's what I have for my crew skills. I just left it as it is on the LTTB because I think it works. But the initial problems that I was running into this tank is, even though it has a awesome camo rating, this tank has fantastic camo rating. I believe it's 19.75 base camo rating, which is fantastic for a scout. It's very, very good, which means you're really sneaky. But this tank has another problem, and this you won't see it here because the stats have updated it because of the equipment that I have on it. But this tank has only 360 meters base view range, so that is really, really, really low. And even though this tank has really, really good camo rating, making it hard to spot, I was finding that I was having a hard time out spotting, or at least equally spotting, enemy scouts or mediums, because my view range was so poor that even the strength of my camo rating wasn't compensating for that lower view range that my tank had. So I had to figure out a way to improve my view range with a different equipment loadout. So initially, I just did a standard equipment loadout. I went with coated optics, vertical stabilizer, and rammer, I believe is what I went for. Yeah, I went for rammer. So that's what I went for initially. I went for coated optics, vertical stabilizer, and rammer, not vents. I have vents here now. And that was my initial setup. And that's kind of the holy trinity of equipment loadouts, and that works on a lot of tanks, not just scout tanks. That improved the firepower, the rammer did, of course, but I was finding that, like I said before, that I was getting outspotted by other scouts and mediums just because of my view range wasn't good enough to spot them before they spotted me. And because I had to get so close to them before I would spot them, right? Because my view range was so poor. And we're talking about on open maps here, right? On close range maps or corridor maps, this doesn't matter anyway. But in situations where you're trying to spot over distance, this is what it applies. So that wasn't working for me, and then I switched to another equipment loadout. I tried a dual vision equipment loadout. I tried coated optics and binocs for that, and then kept the vertical stabilizers as well, because the gun handling is just so poor on this tank that it would be really hard to get shots in without vertical stabilizers. It would be really hard to get shots consistently. So I went with the dual vision loadout, and that kind of worked. But to be honest, the meta of World of Tanks is so mobile. The map design, how people play, you need to be relocating a lot, and you need to be moving a lot in scout tanks, and not just scout tanks, in any tank of course, but especially scout tanks, to be able to keep applying your vision and applying your damage to get different angles. And you really don't have a whole lot of opportunity to maximize the use of your binocs. I really don't use binoculars on my scouts as a general rule above tier 4 and some tier 5 tanks. On certain autoloaders like the AMX-12T, for example, at tier 6 and the Type 64, I will use a dual vision loadout, a coated optics, and binocs. But for the most part, I don't use binocs just because I'm so mobile as a player, and I move around way too much, and I just don't get the enough benefit out of the binoculars, because you have to be stationary, of course, for them to be activated. And you don't, the situations that you run into at the higher tiers where the benefits of the binocs come in aren't as often as the benefits that you would get from your increased firepower, increased from vents, for example. So that's the second loadout that I tried. I tried a coated optics, binocs, and vert stabs, and that kind of helped, but not really. And it still wasn't working for me. So basically what I did, I was like, okay, so this tank still isn't getting enough view range, and I have a 5-skill crew, right? I have all the skills that would buff my view range. I have the Brothers in Arms, I have situational awareness, and I have recon. And I had the standard equipment loadout, and it still wasn't enough. So basically what I did was, okay, so I need to drop something and get for the equipment and get more view range. So the only other thing that can buff my view range as far as equipment is concerned, other than binocs, is ventilation. Because what ventilation does is it increases the primary skill level of your crew, right? So this would be the number here, 120, 132, 132, and 132. These numbers here are your primary percentage points of your primary skill of your crew. And when your primary, crew skill is increased, it increases by a small percentage the amount of that your perks give you, basically, is how that works. So and that also applies to your view range perks as well. And it also applies, your primary also applies to your commander as well. So I dropped the rammer, unfortunately, for ventilation. I really wanted to keep the rammer, but I was thinking to myself, do I trade off rate of fire or gun handling? And the rate of fire is good enough, in my opinion, to drop the rammer. You could try vents and rammer and try to go without the vertical stabilizers, but I don't think the gun handling would be good enough, and it'd be really painful to play. And then finally, some of you probably won't like this, but it's how it works in this tank for me. I use food. I use extra combat rations in this tank because that will also buff my view range, and it also buffs my gun handling and some of the mobility stats as well. So that's my loadout in this tank, and it seems to be working really well for me. Like I said, initially I was, even with this tank's fantastic camo rating, let's see, yeah, with all my crew skills and everything loadout, I actually have almost, let's see if I can get it into part here. You can see I almost have 42% camo rating, so on the move. So that is fantastic. That's fantastic camo rating. That means I'm really, really sneaky and I can get really close to the enemy before they can spot me. But even with that camo rating, I was having difficulty in outspotting other tanks, and more specifically other scout tanks and certain mediums before they spotted me, just because I had to get so close to them to spot them because of my poor view range. And by the time I got that close, my camo rating, good as though it may be, was not good enough to keep them from spotting me. So that is the loadout that I went with. So yeah, that's my initial thoughts on the loadout that I went with on this tank. And now I'm going to be showing you guys some gameplay in my first ace tanker in the LTG, the Light Tank Gaviloff. Alright, so here we are in my first ace tanker game. I am on steps here in the LTG, and we are in a tier 8 game. There's only, I think it's a 3-5-7 matchup here. 3 tier 8s, 5 tier 7s, and then 6, well, maybe 7. Yeah, 7 tier 6s. Yeah, my math is terrible. Anyway, and so this is a really good matchup for this tank. This tank suffers, I think, more than other certain tier 7 scout tanks, possibly. The higher the tiering it goes. Like when you get into tier 9 games, I think this tank suffers a little bit more than maybe some of the other ones. I'm not sure yet. Like I said, I haven't played this tank a whole lot yet, so I'll let you guys know what I think about that. With this tank being bottom tier and certain other ones, certain games compared to other tier 7 scouts. But yeah, this is a fantastic matchup for this tank. A great map for it. Lots of vision roll, lots of long distance vision gameplay that I can use, and I can use my camo rating. And because of my loadout that I went with, I compensated for my really poor view range on this tank. And let's just go with it here before I start rambling too much here. Alright, so during the countdown I told my team that I would be getting some early spots here. This is a really, this bush wasn't quite as well known maybe a year ago up here in F6, but now it's pretty common for people to be using this bush right up here in F6. Yeah, you need to keep in mind that when you're approaching to this bush, it's really common for enemy scouts to try and rush into this D7 bush here right next to this rock up here. Just a quick opinion about that. I really don't like going to this rock where this WZ131 is if I'm on the other team. Unless it's a low tier game like tier 3, 4, maybe some tier 5 games, because for the main reason of me right here, that's why I don't like it. You're so easily spotted here by the mid and higher tier games. Players start getting more experienced and they know to be going to this position where I am, and they can easily spot where that WZ131 is, and also where my super Pershing is on my team. They can easily spot your approach as well. So we're helping getting some assistance damage in on that Cromwell, and I decide to go ahead and take the kill while I can. I can reverse back into cover, and we can just take that Cromwell's gun out of the fight, and we won't have to worry about him anymore. And now when you're doing your re-approach into this bush, you want to, when there's a scout in that position, you want to keep the bush in between you and him, and you always need to be ready to reverse back right down right away in case you get spotted again, because there's a gap between these two bushes right here, and I do get spotted. So I'm pretty sure it's the Jäg Panzer IV that's spotting me when I'm trying to reapproach from that wide angle into that bush. So I don't want to try and peek and poke in there anymore. There's no point. There's not a lot of benefit I can get for myself or my team for doing that, and I'm risking a lot to do so. So I'm deciding, I've noticed that our west flank is really vulnerable. It's just a Scorpion G over here, and I decide, you know, we probably will lose this, but I want to try and help my Scorpion G out as much as possible and make the enemy team lose as many hit points and maybe get some kills here as much as possible for them wanting to kill my Scorpion G buddy. So we get one shot into the 112 there, get him tracked there, just keep him immobilized, and that helps us Scorpion G get a nice shot in. Tunnel vision a bit there and not notice that the ARL 44 had come around the corner. I should have anticipated that. I had preloaded some APCR rounds here for the 112 because of he was at about a 45-degree angle to me, and I'll be a noob here and not forget to switch back to AP. I do that all the time. When I switch to premium ammo, I forget to switch back to standard, and that costs me a lot of credits in games sometimes. So right now, I stayed one shot too long. I should have turned around immediately here and started retreating and getting a different angle on this Tiger P. But our 12T is coming over here now. Our Artie gets a good smack in here on the Tiger P, and I communicate to our Artie that we got a 500 HP hit on the Tiger P, so that means that he's roughly down to 1,000 hit points now, so that will help. But right now, I'm thinking that I'm not really sure what to be doing. I'm not sure if I should be helping the 9-0 line here or helping to defend. And then I noticed that this Oho is crossing in the open, so I decided to take a couple of shots here. Once again, being a noob and forgetting not to switch back to standard, and then I just realized there, I was like, oh, I'm still shooting APCR. Oh well, it happens. It's not the end of the world. So, all right. So I decide, well, now I need to try and help that flank, and then I was like, oh wait, no, those tanks are gonna die here. So I was like, I can't stay around here on this flank as long as I would have wanted. I wasn't keeping an eye on the HP of my teammates. Take an unnecessary shot there from the Panzer IV. I had a really bad approach line. And I'm going pretty YOLO here, actually, and being really reckless with my positioning and my hit points, and it will come back and bite me later in the game. Sideways jump there. Luckily, it didn't flip my tank. I noticed that that's also a bigger problem in World of Tanks now. Flipping scouts is a lot easier. I've done it on more than one occasion. Oh well. Having an embarrassing moment every once in a while is a healthy thing for humility. Alright, so we get that 2801 killed. Unfortunately, it did cost us a shot of damage from the Panzer IV because of my bad angle. Artie takes a shot at me here, and now I just need to get out of here. And now our team have done a decent job of defending. They've killed the Tiger P. The Oho is down to a one-shot, and the ARL is also down to a one-shot. I'm not sure if I need premium to pen the Oho's micro turrets here or not. That's some bad knowledge of armor values. I'm not sure if I could have penned it. I probably could have penned it with 144. I'll have to look that up after the game. But now the Oho and the ARL are dead. Now we can turn around and focus on one side. Unfortunately, our super Pershing pushed out here, and that made it a lot more difficult. You always need to be looking at the hit points of your teammates and just trying to decide if you have enough time to come and help them or not. He pushed out, and he got crossfired by the T-28 Prot and the Panzer IV there, who were sitting in base, unfortunately. So if he had just stayed in base there, he would have conserved his hit points better, and it would have made it a lot easier for this game. But basically, he made the mistake I did when I was attacking that 2801, exposing himself to multiple angles of fire, and that was completely unnecessary, just as it was unnecessary when I did it. So, alright, so we're in a bit of a pickle here. We're trying to locate this Panther here. I'm thinking that maybe this 12T will help me here and use his hit points. If this 12T is willing to use his hit points, we can actually easily kill this Panther. Before the Panzer IV and T-28 Prot presumably come up and move up. We're not sure where they are yet. I've been spotting them, and there we go. There's the Panzer IV. He's decided to move up, so I guess it was too late to attack that Panther anyway. Uh-oh, and the 28 Prot has moved up as well, so we had no time at all. And unfortunately, the T-28 Prot has now knocked our IS-2 down to a one-shot, and now I'm now trying to flank the T-28 Prot here. Bad shot there. I should have anticipated the upslope that would knock my gun up, and so it didn't hit the rear of it. Panther is engaging me here, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would be free to kill this T-28 Prot, but the Panther is able to defend him. Normally, I would be able to just out-traverse his gun in his turn, but Unfortunately, I'm not able to do that, so now I need to run away. Did a misplay there, had a wrong cut. The T-28 could have snapshotted me there, but realized my mistake and adjust and put the rock in between me and him. And now I'm just trying to help my 12T buddy here, who's dueling with this Panther. Making a mistake here and stopping, I think. I'm making it really easy for enemy artillery to shoot me right now, but luckily they aren't shooting me yet. I'm not sure why. Maybe I am in cover from them and they're over on the 8, 9 lines. I'm not sure. But accidental shot on the prod. I was aiming for the Panther, but now I'm like, oh yeah, I should be shooting the prod since he's lower health. And now I'm just trying to secure the kill on the prot there. There we go. We got him out of the fight here. Now it's kind of a 2v1 with the 12T and myself versus this Panther. But this is one of the weaknesses of the LTG a little bit. It's kind of a sluggish scout tank, and unfortunately I waited a little bit too long when I was adjusting my last shot on the prot, and that gave the Panther enough time to get a shot in on me before I dove off the slope. Luckily the Panther misses his kill shot there. And I'm trying to get into cover here from the Panther, and I do it, and I get around the hill, and Artie kills me. It was only a matter of time. And quite honestly, I was lucky that they didn't shoot at me here while I was sitting back here while I was shooting at the Panther and the prod earlier. And like I said here, Artie makes everything lame, and I will hold to that opinion. So that's unfortunate. I made too many misplays in this game, I think, even with a good statistical result. I took 2 shots of damage that I didn't need to in this game, and it ended up coming back and basically costing us the game here. This 12T does have a good chance of winning this game here if he can kill the Panther, but as you'll see in a moment, something really funny happens. I don't know if he deliberately was trying to dodge Artie or not, but luckily both Artie missed there, so he has a little bit of a window to kill this Panther here. So what he should be doing right now is charging the Panther before enemy Artie can reload. There we go. Artie stuns him there. And because Artie stunned him, he wasn't able to reverse as fast as he thought he could, and it was really slow. And he flips his tank sideways, and he's stationary, which made him a really easy shot for the other Artie who had reloaded by then, the M12. So I thought that was kind of funny. Really unfortunate that we lost this game. A large part of it was due to my misplay, and also the misplay of our super Pershing here, sitting in base the whole game and not contributing at all to either flank until our teammates on either flank were already dead. He could have gone over here and helped in the east, or he could have gone over and helped in the west with our Scorpion G, but he basically just kind of sat in game and wasn't really engaged in the fight until the enemy came to him. And then he just charged the enemy and exposed himself to multiple angles of fire. And that, to be fair, is the same mistake I did when I was engaging that 2801. So that's kind of how games work, competitive games. Whoever makes the fewest amount of mistakes usually is the one who wins. Knock on wood. Not always. Sometimes RNG saves you from your bad mistakes. But usually, if you make more mistakes, you're the one who ends up losing. So, yeah, this is the first ace tanker, like I said, for the LTG. Sorry, I'm stuck on the AMX 12T wreck here because that's who I pan to. And like I said in the garage when I was talking about my loadout for this tank, the strengths of this tank: camo rating, fantastic camo rating, has okay mobility. I would call it average. Top speed, average. Traverse is on the slightly worse side when it comes to agility, being able to turn the tank. It's pretty good in a straight line, but when you have to start turning, it doesn't corner as well as some other scout tanks. And as far as firepower is concerned, penetration's okay. I think that Wargaming have over-nerfed the penetration on some of the tiers of scouts. Tier 7 specifically, I think they over-nerfed it by, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 points of penetration too much. I think that the Tier 7 scouts should have somewhere between 150 and 155 millimeters of penetration, roughly, depending on their gun and their attributes. but that's all right. The gun handling is poor, so I would compensate that. Make sure you have snapshot and smooth ride, and also vertical stabilizers definitely, or you're going to have a really hard time getting shots in, or you're just going to have to give yourself a lot more time to aim. The tank is not a sniper as a general rule. Its accuracy, base accuracy is okay. I don't remember what the value is off the top of my head, but it's not reliable at distance. It will miss shots at long range. So you have to get a little bit closer to do so, and the tank's camo rating is really good to do that. You can get a lot closer to your enemy, about 50, 75 meters closer to your enemy and shoot while still not getting spotted, compared to some other scout tanks of the same tier. So that's my initial thoughts on the LTG. Like, I'm sure I'll be getting more gameplay for you guys here in the future, but I'm really liking this tank, even with its funny quirks, kind of awkward mobility, bad view range, but really good camo rating. It kind of reminds me of the ELC, the old ELC, a little bit when it comes to view range and camo rating. The old ELC had really good camo rating, but bad view range, so you could get really close to the enemy and you needed to spot them, but you had the camo rating to get away with it. So that's kind of how this tank's vision role plays a little bit. So I want to thank you guys for watching this video. I'm going to cut it off here before I ramble too much longer. Wish you guys the best of luck, and hopefully this will give you guys some ideas on how you could play your LTG. If you don't have the credits to do combat rations, obviously a lot of people have standard accounts, and that's totally understandable. I'd probably recommend going for a dual vision loadout. I would go with coated optics, binocs, and vertical stabilizers, or you could do coated optics, vertical stabilizers, and vents for your equipment loadout, and that would be those would be two alternatives for you to using food consumables. Thank you guys so much for watching this sort of review. Happy hunting and take care.